The next area we're going to fill is the lower left-hand corner, and we're going to be using a circular backstitch pattern. So let's take a look at that diagram. Okay, the first thing I want to note is that each stitch will be covering 3 linen threads, whether it's on the vertical or the horizontal or on the diagonal. On the diagonal, we'll count over 3 and up 3. Also, this is your typical backstitch. Our pattern is going to be moving in this direction, which means each stitch will be going backwards. So we'll be going from top to bottom, from top to bottom, from right to left, from bottom to top as we progress. Also, in order to create the circles, we're actually going to be doing the top of one circle and then the bottom of the next circle and the top of the next circle until we get around here, when technically we start our next pathway, the blue color, and we start going in the other direction. Now notice that when the 2 circles are side by side, they will be sharing holes. So once I get to this point, I'll start going back around, and that will complete each circle in the first row. When I start the next row, which is the green stitches, again, I'll start here and go top to bottom, top to bottom. And when this set of circles meets the first set, again, they'll be sharing holes. So you'll have double stitches wherever the circles meet each other. Let's see, the other thing to pay attention here is that the whole motif will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threads away from the side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 threads away from the top. So now let's take a look at what we need to count to find the exact place to start, which is going to be right here. That will be the beginning of our first stitch. So it will be 5 threads over, and 8 threads down to get to this point. I'm going to begin with a buried waist knot. So I'm going to put my waist knot approximately here so that all of these upright stitches will be covering and securing that tail as I'm stitching. So I can really put my waist knot any place over here so it'll just be out of the way. So 5 threads in and 8 threads down, and my first stitch is going to cover 3 threads on the linen fabric, and every stitch will actually cover 3. Now I can't pull the first stitch very hard, otherwise I'll just be pulling my waist knot out. So from the top of this stitch, I'm going to come up 3 and over 3, and now I can start pulling. The top of the circle is a simple horizontal stitch, again covering 3 threads. And then I've got the diagonal stitch over 3 and down 3. And the next stitch is simply down 3 threads from there. Now at this point, I should be capturing the tail of my thread on the back. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tug on the waist knot, and you'll see that the very first stitch tightens up. Now that finishes the top of this circle. So now I'm going to start the bottom of the next circle. So I'm going to come over 3 and down 3 and do the diagonal. Come over 3 and do the horizontal base of that second circle. Come over 3 and up 3. And the next stitch is the side, and again it's capturing, whoops, I need to do 3, and it's capturing the tail of my beginning thread. And now we'll begin the top of the next circle. So go up 3 and over 3 to do the diagonal. Over 3 to do the top. Over 3 and down 3 to do the upper slant. I'm going to stop here for a second. This stitch doesn't look really tight enough. If you do this before you get too far ahead, this will work. I can simply pull against this stitch and then pull against the next stitch and tighten them all up. Sometimes if I get way far ahead, I've been pretty successful, but I wouldn't go too far. So it's a good idea to every once in a while look back on your tension and make sure that you are pulling the stitches consistently and to your liking. Now it's time to start the descent, the half round of the last circle in this row. So there's the slant and the bottom. And again, I don't feel like I pulled that last one tight enough. Over 3 and up 3. And our last stitch will again capture the tail. And now that we have successfully gone in this direction, now we're going to finish these circles going back. So I'm going to go over 3 and up 3. Doing the horizontal stitch at the top of this circle. And now I'm going to do a shared hole here. The next stitch shares holes. You may want to try to make your 2 stitches where they share holes, make sure that they're aligned next to each other, not on top of each other. So now you can see I've got a complete circle. And now I'm going to start over 3 and down 3 to do the bottom half of this circle. And there's your first row. Now, before we start the next row, we have a bit of a challenge as far as transitioning from one row to another. If I were to continue with this pattern, this last stitch right here would get pulled up like this, and you would see a very distinctive hole right there. If I bring it down this way, you can see where it changes the slant of that stitch. Or perhaps it'd be better if I said, can you see the difference in how that stitch will lie, depending on where you go next? If you don't see a difference and you don't feel like it makes a difference, then you can just carry on. But what I like to do is I will actually on the back come up and tuck this my working thread behind a stitch so that this stitch gets pulled up in the direction that it should be. I'm going to do that, and then I'll be right back with you. Now I'm ready to start the next circle. So from the bottom of this row, I'm just simply going to count down 1, 2, 3 stitches, and that puts me where I need to be with my first stitch right here. The second stitch will share holes with the previous row. And we'll repeat the stitch, here at the bottom of that circle, and the top of the next circle is really the same stitch. So I'm going to come down 3, and following the same pattern, I'm doing the top of that circle and now the bottom of the next circle. Now I'm going to continue on across. I cut that a little closer than I would have liked, so in my written instructions I'm going to be telling you to use about 25 inches. Now to bury this thread, again, I want to have this pull going in the direction it would have gone in if I had continued stitching. So I'm simply going to come up here and slide under these stitches going across like this. And pull securely enough that my last hole is about the same as all the other ones. And then I'm going to cut, well, I think I'm going to go under one more set of stitches here, as long as I have enough thread to do that. And then cut that thread off. And this is my waist knot up here, so I'm going to cut that off as well. And that finishes the first 2 rows of this pattern. I've started the second journey with a waist knot over here on the right, starting my stitching here on the left. That's my first stitch, second, third one is in a showed hole, etc. And now I'm just going to move, follow that first pathway over and back to make my next row of circles.